Hey, I'm Krista Wax. You are listening to MSP Sound on KFAI, and I have Mama Rose via Zoom right now. Hey,
Hi, thank you for having me on.
absolutely. Thanks for being here. This is awesome. You're here because you have a brand new EP out called Drink More Water. We were just talking about it. We were just taking sips of water before. I'm assuming you had water. I'm not asking. I don't need to check, but it's what's water. Well, tell me all about this EP. I mean, it's amazing. It's combining multiple styles of music, and it's just, oh my gosh, I love it. So I will let you answer the question I asked like 5 minutes ago.
All right, so let's see. This is my first EP. Made a lot of music before, and I've never put anything out as a solo artist, not even a single song as a solo artist before. So everything that I have out right now that isn't this EP is with my group, which is called Pact, Pact, or collaborations with other people featuring on other people's songs and things like that. So I've made my own music in the past for many, many, many years. And I was just kind of waiting for the pieces to come together to find the right collaborators as far as production and engineering. And last summer, I ran into someone who I have known for a while but hadn't ever worked with before, named Jason Fay, at a Mac House show. And if you don't know, Mac House is a local group who puts together lots of different live events. And it was the first live event that like anybody there had been to in so long. And it was just really, everyone was uncomfortable, but they did a good job trying to kind of keep us where we needed to be and safe and feeling pretty good about it and stuff. So I went to this event, and Jason was there and invited me to come and do a free hour in his studio and see what we could create together. So that was it for me. I got there, and my partner came along with me. He goes by Tom Tom. He's in my group Pact also. He came along, and I got in the booth, and we put on just a little simple guitar loop, and I freestyled the whole second track of this EP, which is called Flood. And we ended up building the instrumental behind that later and having Bia Lima come in and do some violin to add to that and stuff. But it obviously, the chemistry was there. It clicked and worked really well. And then from that point on, the process for each song was really different. Sometimes I would come in with nothing and it would just start with freestyling. Sometimes I would bring an old poem that I had from way, way back that just felt like it was ready to have new life. And I usually would bring a couple options just to kind of see what felt right to work on. And then there were other times that it was something that I had intentionally written and knew that I needed to work on in a really specific way. So everything really came together pretty differently. And then there's one song on the project called Hollow Walls, which a friend of mine, Brian Schumann, did the production and engineering for. And or I guess I would that's an interesting one to even try to talk about, because that is a poem that I wrote when I was waiting for my partner Tom Tom to get done with work one day, and I was just in the van, and it was like a really gloomy day, and I was just feeling all sorts of just yucky stuff kind of come up, but it came out so beautifully when I wrote it down that I brought it to my friend Brian Schumann's house the next day, and then ended up recording two a cappella freestyles of it. Like the melody was just freestyled, and then we put them together, and it ended up working in such an amazing way where they actually worked together really well. And he did a little bit of just kind of nudging some stuff and added like way more reverb than I've ever put on anything before in my life, and it sounds really cool. So everything came together differently, but each song is definitely a really big part of me, and each song also kind of bridges different genres. So there's a lot of parts of me and my history and my past and my influences in those genres also. And also it was like some things that I was going through during the process of actually creating the project, and some things that had happened already, and some things that were just that are just kind of like latent or inherent in who I am, all mixed together.
I love it. Oh my gosh, what a great story. I love this. You're like, I just had some poems and I put them to life. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
And just to mix all the different genres that you do, I just think it's such a fascinating, beautiful album. So
I appreciate that.
congrats. And so you worked on this you've been working on this through the pandemic. Like it kind of sparked a little in you when you were out, and then it just kind of developed from there.
Yeah. And this pandemic has been more layered for me than I expected it to be, because I was also pregnant during the creation of this project. And so from July to September is when I made this. And I was pregnant that whole time. I had my son on October 12th. So he's just over 4 months old now. And about halfway through my pregnancy, we found out that he had some really serious health complications. And at that time, the doctors were not able to tell us really what we were looking at as far as like what his life would look like, or if he would even be able to live outside of my body. So that was like really, 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 really big news. And it was just very wild for my partner and I to navigate that. And we are blessed to have some really close, wonderful people in our lives and a really beautiful community who's able to hold us through that time. And we just kept making music. So I knew that even if he was only going to be with me while I was carrying him, that I still needed to make music, and I still needed to find a way to capture whatever was going on in me throughout that process and be able to hold it, because I think for me, like writing poetry and music and singing and performing are all ways that I can take something that's really intangible and like really difficult for me to hold and make it something that I can hold, or that I can at least just kind of like look at, otherwise it's all over the place. And I'm just like, I need to boil this down and organize it sometimes, because otherwise it just gets really overwhelming to be a human and have human experiences. So that's my way of doing that. So there's definitely a lot going on for me during the pandemic, including that. But so up until the day he was born, they were telling us, there's a chance that he will come out and he'll be doing really well, and we can do some testing and kind of see what's going on, hopefully get a little bit more information and go from there. And there's a chance that he will come out and his brain just isn't really gonna be able to coordinate breathing and swallowing at the same time and things like that that are really like basic life functions. So I ended up having him a couple weeks before my due date, and it was a scheduled C-section that they actually decided to move up because his head was growing so large. He has hydrocephalus. That's one of the things that was going on. And so there was no way that he could pass through my body naturally. So we had to go with a C-section instead, and which ended up being actually a really beautiful birth and a really beautiful experience for us. But it was definitely different for me because my other two births were vaginal. So anyway, he came out and he was pink and he was crying and he was just wonderful and adorable. And I got to see him for like a few seconds, and then they rushed him away and my partner went with him, and it was just crazy. But they were able to do an MRI for him and realized that his hydrocephalus is caused by something that we were able to bypass with a shunt. So he had a surgery, at 3 days old. And then he had a heart surgery to do a whole bunch of stuff at 2 weeks old. And this whole time I was just kind of like sitting on the project, like, okay, it's done. It's been done since a little bit right before he was born, but I do not have the capacity to release it yet, because obviously like my kids and my family are taking my focus right now. So during that time too, I ended up creating more music, and that'll be in another project that'll come later. But so the pandemic for me has been like very layered, and because he is high risk for COVID, that adds a whole bunch more kind of to what's going on for our family too.
Oh my gosh, that is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mama Rose. Mama Rose.
Yeah.
Congrats on your birth. I am
Thank
glad your baby is good.
He's doing so great. He's absolutely thriving, and he's just the little joy that I always knew he could be.
I can't imagine how, I mean, I bet recording in a way was probably a little therapeutic and just like maybe a way to just kind of, I don't know how you can not forget about everything going on, especially because it's going on in your body.
Yeah.
So you can't really escape it, but like that, I mean, oh my gosh, I just have a new love for this album. And thank you for putting out music during this time.
Yeah.
During the pandemic.
Yeah. But that's definitely an important part of the story, like of the creation process of this. So it's creating more than one thing at the same time.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Wow. So that's how your quarantine's going.
Yeah. But it's great. I mean, I'm really personally enjoying spending the time that I have right now with my kids and with my family. Like it's been a very wild ride, and like any challenge, it's just a gift on its flip side.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're busy with your family. I feel like some of us all need just kind of like a little pause, a little breath, maybe time to regroup, drink more water, listen to the album or drink more water. Let's talk about that album title.
Okay, let's.
Drink more water. I love it. It makes me smile because I do actually just drink a lot of water in general. And it feels, I don't know, the title, it makes me smile. It makes me think like, yeah, drink more water. It feels cleansing. It feels like a cleansing album. How did you come up with that title?
Well, so another part of what I do is energy work and psychic work.
Oh, wow.
And I say that because I want that to kind of just be like in the background of your mind and everyone who's listening's mind, because a lot of what comes through in my music is energy work. And the title is intended to be that as well. So you don't ever read anything without having some impact and shift in your energy, right? Because when our mental energy is attached to whatever we're taking in, like in words, it creates a change. And I think that drink more water is a really great positive affirmation. Like almost everybody could be drinking more water, right? And it's something that even if you're pretty on top of it, like there are going to be times where it still gets a little hard to do that. And it's like a really basic self-care thing that I think we really especially all need right now, because like you said, a lot of times right now, like we're kind of in a position where it can get really hard to take a break, like my kids aren't going to do things like they normally would. I'm sure for most people, the things that we normally do, the things that we have as our typical coping practices or self-care practices have shifted a lot. So I think that can be something that's super basic and universal, but also more than that, deeper than that, it's for me about creating the shift that we want to see in the world, and how that can start so much at home and then it can expand outward from there. So even just taking like these little super tiny moments during the day to choose to care for ourselves, or choose to deepen and start to understand, or even like consciously create our relationship with water, our bodies are made out of and that our planet is made out of, that can create a shift that's so drastic when it starts to make its rings, you know, like dropping a pebble in the pond and letting that spread out. And I think for me, when I think about the sickness that I see in our society right now and in our world, what I'm looking at as someone who thinks in terms of energy is that we have too much of the do energy and not enough of the rest and receive energy. And the terms that I use for those, because they make sense to me, are masculine energy is the do and feminine energy is the receive. And that doesn't mean that I'm talking about men and women, because everybody has masculine and feminine energy. And ideally, we want that to be in balance for everyone. What I'm talking about more so is creative cycles. And when we have the do and the rest in balance, then we get this system that actually can create. And if we don't have them in balance, then we get stuck. And we're in a place right now where everybody wants to see some sort of shift or some sort of outcome in the way that things are working in our on a world scale. But a lot of us are having a hard time figuring out how to do or create action that is inspired and doesn't just feel like it's exhausting and draining us all the time, you know? And at the same time, like we see this in the values in our society and what's expected of us, even during a pandemic, even during a time where our responsibilities are so drastically shifted, there's still this basic level of like, you need to do and do and do and do and do more, because ultimately we're not set up in a society that is community oriented. Like we're not set up in such a way that we're going to be taken care of if we need to rest. And I really hope that the work that I'm doing with this project is going to be balancing and inspiring to listen to in a way that really creates that little spark of that shift starting inside of each of us. So that starting or continuing, you know, so that you can rest a little bit more and find the balance throughout the day of when it's appropriate to do and when it's appropriate to rest, so that even if right now your life is not balanced in that way at all, it can start to go in that direction and eventually get to that point. And then we can get there as a society too. So when I think about feminine energy, the number one thing that comes to my mind is water, because water is absolutely fluid, obviously. And it's also incredibly strong because it can hold rocks. It can hold something that's so rigid, and it can carve stone by holding and carrying that, you know? And think about action in that way. Like if we have action that's held by receptivity and we're in a state of flow as we're acting, then we can carve the most rigid structures that we're a part of. And I think that that's really, really powerful imagery. And if we can just get more in touch with cultivating our relationship with water, we naturally get more in touch with cultivating our relationship with our own feminine energy, our rest and our receptivity. And then we get information that comes into us. You know, our words, our speech is inspired. Our communication is inspired. Our connection is inspired. We find places where we can be more vulnerable in the way that we're expressing ourselves. We understand that part of inspired action is finding ways to tell our story and to share our gifts and how important that is. And it all just goes together. And I think that even just that one little sentence, drink more water, is like, yeah, maybe I should, maybe I could. And then it starts from there.
I always think that I feel like water is very healing, no matter if you're looking at it visually, like you see it at a lake or an island, a beach, which would be really nice right now, or just drinking it. I just feel like it heals. It can heal in so many ways, but I've never thought about it at the level that you just explained. And then, wow, even deeper, that makes me just want to chug the rest of my water tonight. Like I'm excited.
Really important too to pray to our water And when I say pray, that can really mean like whatever it means for each individual. For me, it's not religious, but it's spiritual. And it's me understanding that I have an opportunity to connect my energy with something that's outside of me. So like I pray to my plants and I pray to water in them. And I pray to the water in my body and in other people's bodies when I'm doing energy work, or I'm even just loving people. And it's like this super accessible way of creating change.
It sounds so simple. You make it sound so simple.
I think the hardest part is believing that it matters. Like, since we've been trained to look at things so simply and in such a stripped down way, and just only with our five senses, you know, like if you can't experience it with your five senses, then you shouldn't be focusing on it, kind of thing. And that's really not true. And like, I just love our planet so much. And if I take a minute, even just a minute every day, to just like give thanks to the water, the bodies of water, and the people who are protecting the water, and then the water that I have available to me, I feel so much more connected to something that's bigger than me than I did right before that. And that just completely changes the way that I feel and the way that I operate in my day.
It's such a mind shift.
It really is. Yeah. And it's accessible.
I know. Yeah. Like, you definitely make this sound like this is like a very simple shift in a way this is achievable. Like, it's not, I don't know. You don't have to spend X amount of money to get like the special water. And
no, you can.
Right. If you're led to do that, for sure. Yeah. But, ooh, I love this. That just really, it definitely brings a deeper level to this EP.
And then a couple of the songs just started to be like, naturally, they just are about water. And because obviously that's a big theme in my life and like a big part of my thinking. Yeah.
Wow. Getting deep with Mama Rose. I love this. This is very good. People should check out your EP. Where can they find it?
So on February 26th, it comes out everywhere that you listen to music. It's going to be on streaming services. It's going to be on YouTube, Bandcamp, SoundCloud. Yeah, just pretty much everywhere that you might look for it.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's
the only place you won't find it right away is Pandora, because that's a little bit of a longer process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Pandora in a little bit, but streaming everywhere. February 26th.
Yeah.
So I know you said you have some new songs ready for the next album, and obviously we don't want, I think I always do this. I make the most awkward transition where I'm like, hey, so you just put this album out. When's the next one? But yeah, how are your plans, and how are, I guess, what I really want to know is what's the album title, and is it, I mean, we just got very deep about the Drink More Water, so I'm dying to know what it is. But obviously, if you need to hold off or you don't know, you're waiting for the title to come later. But anything you can tell us about the next one?
Yeah, so I'm working on solo stuff right now. And then I'm also working on music with my partner, Tom Tom. And then I'm also working on music with my group, Pact. So the next thing that comes out is most likely going to be a Pact project. So that is, we've got a few songs ready already. And we're really, really like, it's the most fun thing ever to work with these guys. And we make a lot of music really quickly. And now that we have found Jason Faye, the producer that we've been working with really consistently, we've just been like so in our zone that, and in our flow, that it's really fun, and it's coming together pretty quickly. So I would anticipate that probably being just a couple months out. And then perhaps some singles in the meantime from all of us together. And then my solo stuff that I'm working on, I'll take a little bit more time on that. I don't feel like that's going to happen at least until it gets cold again. And I'm not sure what the project title will be for any of this so far. So, but I do like to post a lot of little samples of kind of what's going on and like in my creation process with Pact and also on my own with my partner on my social media accounts. So that's somewhere that people can stay current with things if they choose to. And on all social media, it's at the @ Dear Mama Rose, like you're writing a letter, DearMamarose. So there'll be updates there.
Okay. Well, that's wow. You are keeping busy along
Yeah.
with new baby and 3 children.
Yep. Yeah. And we just right now, like just yesterday, started to build a studio in our basement. So that'll be fun and help everything along too. And then our little baby, he comes to the studio with us a couple times a week. So that's pretty fun too. I was just joking with a friend recently that he's featured on most of our songs now because he's just loud.
Does he do percussion? Is it percussion?
Very rhythmic, but yeah.
Oh, I love that. Mama Rose, so much music coming up.
I'm so excited about it.
That's incredible. Way to use your quarantine time wisely.
Thank you. I think that I am experiencing a period of great blessing right now in my life. I'm very, very grateful that this time for me has been as fruitful as it has been, and also has brought me to the absolute depths of my core and killed my ego about 1 million times and rebirthed me. So.
Oh, wow. Well, incredible stories. Incredible EP, Drink More Water, out February 26th on all the streaming platforms, Bandcamp. You can find Mama Rose at Dear Mama Rose. Updates on all your projects. That sound incredible. I can't wait to hear more music from you and whatever form we can get it with your other groups and projects and more solo stuff. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. The arm flail. That was incredible, Mama Rose. Thank you so much for just like being so open and just talking about your experiences.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you opening up about everything.
Yeah, I really enjoy having a platform to talk about it. Like, it really means a lot to me to be able to do this. So thank you.
Absolutely. You never, like when I interview artists, whether they're with the other Krista, her artist, or anybody else, you never know like what you're going to get. And I don't mean to sound like Forrest Gump, but you don't know what you're going to get. And this was just like, you were just fascinating. So I thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy to connect with you.
Yeah.
I love